a spaceship crashes and falls to Earth. The events take place in Norway in the year 709 AD. A shepherd witnesses a fiery object in the sky breaking apart. The uncontrolled ship crashes into a lake. Only one person survives. His name is Kainan. His companion is dead, and from the deep wounds, it's clear that something very large and fierce killed him. Kainan dives into the lake and retrieves some equipment, using it to determine his location. He discovers that he is on the planet Earth. Kainan also attempts to contact nearby spaceships that might be close to the planet, but his efforts are unsuccessful. Using advanced technology, he quickly acquires essential knowledge about the planet he has landed on, including its flora, fauna, the language spoken by the local inhabitants, and more. Armed, he ventures into the forest and stumbles upon an abandoned village. Seeing the massive claw marks on a wooden door, he understands what happened and realizes what kind of creature left those marks. However, instead of encountering the powerful, savage creature in the forest, he is attacked by a group of people. They overpower him, bind him, and take him to their village. In the village, Kainan is interrogated as they try to figure out who he is and what he's doing in their area, accusing him of attacking a neighboring village. Kainan explains that it wasn't him and that he was actually hunting a dragon. This statement draws laughter from those present. Naturally, they don't believe him and proceed to beat him. Freya, the chieftain's daughter, is assigned to care for the prisoner. She visits him and questions whether he was responsible for the raid on the neighboring village. Kainan says little, and after knocking out the guard with a few blows, he escapes. That night, the village is attacked, but it's not by people. It's the fierce creature Kainan was hunting. However, the villagers believe it's the chieftain of the neighboring village seeking revenge for the people who were killed. The villagers prepare to defend themselves, but the savage monster is far stronger than humans and easily kills them one by one. After the massacre, the villagers seize Kainan again and chain him to a rock. The next morning, the villagers try to figure out who attacked them. Was it humans, Lucifer, or perhaps some animal like a bear? They question Kainan about the creature. He tells them that it is a Moorwen, a beast that kills everything, humans and animals alike. Kainan admits that he brought the Moorwen here. He explains that this monster killed all the crew members on his ship, which then crashed and fell to Earth. After this revelation, a group of warriors sets out into the forest, taking Kainan with them, his hands bound, riding on a horse. They split into smaller groups. The chieftain, along with another warrior, approaches what they believe to be a bear's den. Suddenly, a horse's head falls down on them from above. Later, they engage in a battle with a bear and manage to kill it. Afterward, Kainan is released. Now, Kainan is one of them. He is accepted into the tribe as one of their own, no longer an outsider, but a Viking. He participates in a competition and earns the respect of others, as well as Freya's favor. They start to communicate more and get to know each other better. Suddenly, the village is attacked by a group of men led by Gunnar, the chieftain of the village whose inhabitants were all killed. However, the attackers are defeated and driven out of the village. Gunnar accuses the village chieftain of killing his family and vows to avenge them. That night, the Moorwen attacks Gunnar's men. They all flee to the village they had just recently attacked, seeking help. They rush through the gates, and suddenly, the Moorwen appears. Now everyone sees and no longer doubts that Kainan was telling the truth about the creature. The Vikings must now follow Kainan's advice. They set a trap for the Moorwen. A large pit is dug, logs are set up, and the trap is filled with whale oil, which burns brilliantly. Later, Kainan tells Freya about how they discovered the planet where they decided to settle. But on that planet were millions of Moorwens, ferocious monsters. The people who arrived on the monsters' planet decided to burn them all with fire, and those that survived were to be hunted down. Over time, the settlers established themselves on the planet, and everything was supposed to be fine, as there were no more monsters. But one Moorwen managed to survive, sneaking into the humans' camp and slaughtering them all, including Kainan's family. After hearing Kainan's story, Freya gives him a sword, recognizing him as worthy to wield it. The time has come. Kainan and Wulfric leave the village to act as live bait for the monster. Kainan throws a torch, and they spot the Moorwen beyond the bridge. The creature begins to glow and approaches them. A priest tries to stop the demon beast but is killed by it. The Moorwen chases after Kainan and Wulfric. They run through the trap, but Wulfric falls into the whale oil. Kainan pulls Wulfric out and saves him. The warriors fire flaming arrows, igniting the trap. It seems the plan has worked, but behind the men, a smaller Moorwen crawls up. Freya charges at it with her sword. Moments later, the larger Moorwen leaps from the trap and attacks the men, killing them one by one. Freya's father rushes to her aid, but the small Moorwen kills him. The two monsters then leave the village and escape. The villagers gather and leave the village by ship. Kainan, Wulfric, a few other warriors, and Freya decide to stay behind to kill the monster. They need stronger metal for their swords, and such metal can be found on Kainan's sunken ship. So, Kainan, Freya, and Wulfric head to the lake. Kainan dives into the water and finds a piece of metal, but notices the Moorwen in the water. When he surfaces, he only sees Wulfric. Where has Freya gone? Kainan takes the sword forged from the strong metal and descends into a well. It was from this well that the smaller Moorwen emerged. Thus, Kainan will find the Moorwen's lair and also track down Freya. Kainan finds the monster's lair and calls for the other warriors, who join him. Freya is still alive, trapped in the monster's lair among many human corpses. A small monster attacks her, and she screams and tries to fight it off. Suddenly, the small Moorwen releases her and flees. The group continues to move through the cave when one of the monsters attacks and drags away one of the warriors. They chase after the Moorwen and discover a cavern filled with corpses. The monster attacks another warrior. Kainan shouts, and Freya hears his cry and screams in response. Kainan hears her scream and runs towards her. She begins to run as well but stops and stares into the darkness of the cave. Out of the shadows, the small Moorwen emerges and attacks. Kainan throws her a sword, and she beheads the Moorwen. But another Moorwen is still alive and pursues the surviving trio, Kainan, Freya, and Wulfric. They try to escape and emerge from the cave, but there's nowhere else to run. The Moorwen kills Wulfric. The final battle between the archenemies begins. The Moorwen emerges from the water and stands against Kainan, but then retreats deeper into the cave. Meanwhile, Freya is positioned on a rock. In the cave, Kainan attempts to kill the Moorwen. He manages to wound the monster, cutting off one of its tails. The Moorwen quietly sneaks up on Kainan from behind, but suddenly, Freya strikes it several times with her sword, and Kainan also attacks the monster with his own sword. The Moorwen bursts out of the cave and nearly falls off the cliff but grabs onto Kainan's arm. Freya holds onto Kainan, preventing him from falling off the cliff along with the monster. Summoning his last bit of strength, Kainan severs the monster's forelimb, and it plunges into the abyss. The monster is defeated, and the people can return to their lands. Kainan departs and heads to the emergency beacon, which sends out a distress signal. He is faced with a choice: leave the planet or stay. He chooses the latter because Freya, whom he has fallen in love with, is there. He destroys the beacon. Now he is a Viking, and he becomes the king of the Viking tribe. Only Freya knows Kainan's secret, that the gods had sent him, and he could have returned to them, but he chose to stay.